Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. Today I'm with Megan Redzia, the Executive Vice President of 3E Public Relations. And today she's going to talk to us on the topic of the evolution of public relations. So Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Anytime. Before we get into the topic today, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and what you guys are up to at 3E Publications?
Sure. I have been in the PR industry since I graduated from college. I went to Quinnipiac University.
Awesome. Connecticut?
Connecticut, yes. Yep. Didn't go too far from home for that or coming back. I started at People Magazine in the city. Okay. And then I worked for a boutique agency in Montclair for a little while. Great experience there because big name brands, but a very small team. So we kind of got to work on everything. You know, you're just kind of thrown into the mix at 22, figure it out, which really helped me learn all the different facets of PR.
Definitely.
Then I've been with 3EPR since 2010.
Awesome.
3E originally was a department within an integrated marketing agency called SGW Communications. Okay. They're still in existence, and we are in the same building. We're kind of one big family, divided into different groups. So in 2012, we separated 3EPR, became its own LLC, essentially so we could better promote what does PR really mean, what kind of services fall under that umbrella. It's very different than marketing, despite the fact that we're integrated. So we established 3EPR, and our core services are public relations, social media, and content marketing. And we work with a variety of industries. Primary verticals have always been healthcare. We do a lot with financial clients, food, franchise, like high technology. I'm here today.
There we go.
And then there's some outliers, right? And always the miscellaneous that fall within there.
Awesome. So on the topic of public relations, somebody who knows absolutely nothing about the industry, right? What do most companies get wrong with their PR strategy or public relations in general?
I think the biggest mistake is to think of it in a silo. Okay. So, you know, a lot of people come to us and say, I need PR, or I need a press release written, or I need, you know, some media outreach surrounding this event. You know, we like to look at it, and I think the greatest success is there when you look at it as part of your overall marketing mix. You know, starting with, you know, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And then does PR do that for you? Because if not, you're not going to be happy, and we're not going to be happy, right? Yeah. Or, you know, and in addition to, where does PR fall then within that mix? How can we integrate it and measure accordingly? Okay. I think that people that think of it as its own separate entity and don't integrate PR and our team as an extension to their marketing program is where the biggest mistakes happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on that. Sure. So what would be the best, because I could definitely see that, like, we both got 40 under 40, right? And it's like, okay, let me send out a PR blast about that, and then like we never think about it, and like and when you do that, are you more measuring that on like a one-off instance, and like it's kind of harder to track ROI to that one than it is if you're fully integrated? How do you guys measure the ROI when you are fully integrated?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're 100% right. You know, we do project work for clients, and even the project work, we want to be integrated into the overall marketing program, what's surrounding what they're doing, because it is a little bit more challenging when it's the one-off like that. So ROI, you know, it's ironic. ROI is always been known as a weak point of PR, right? How do you measure PR?
Yeah.
There's media outreach out there. Actually, today, it's become a lot easier to measure ROI. So
awesome.
Where previously we were measuring by kind of these, who knows what number. So impressions or, views on, a broadcast segment. Sure, that's how many people those things reach in general, but like how many actual eyeballs were on there and how does it impact your audience? Now we're able to really integrate with what a client has their KPIs to be and how do we show that? So especially as things are more digital based, how did we drive leads to content that converted into a sale? What does your traffic look like now versus as we're securing media coverage and we see some bumps in that?
Okay.
How is PR affecting domain authority, yours, and as well as the media outlets that we're securing coverage on? Does that have an impact? Is it good coverage essentially?
Yeah.
Or is it just kind of not doing something for you?
Yeah, okay.
So I think as PR has become more digital, it's become a lot easier for us to show ROI than it was in the past.
That's like I know from one thing that we've done is as we continue to push social media and whatnot more and try and kind of be our own PR in terms of like, Anthony, get yourself out there, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
We're starting to see like, all right, a year ago, where was our website traffic and now where is it? And what are the KPIs that went into affecting that potentially?
Right.
So how can businesses improve on their PR strategy and where should they start? Let's start with where should they start and how do they continuously improve on that?
They should start with their goals, right? Their overarching business objectives. I think, like I said, some people think of PR as just, okay, so my goal is to get into the New York Times, right? We get those phone calls all the time. I want to see us in the New York Times or in the Wall Street Journal. Okay, well, let's back up, right? So what are your goals as a business? What target audiences are you looking to reach? What does success look like for you? Start there with us so we can develop a program that gets you there.
Yeah.
Based on what you say, securing a New York Times article might not be the best bet. It might be better for us to get you some speaking engagements where your face is out there. You're able to integrate with your audience. You're having that two-way dialogue. Who knows? Kind of just depends. But I think where companies can improve is to start at the beginning. Don't just assume you need a press release or, a trade show. What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, no, and I think that that obviously that's the big name, the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, but I think you could actually probably, you talked about impressions before, you may get maybe less impressions by being in like a Princeton newspaper or NJBIA or a trade journal, but it may be better impressions or higher quality, right?
Absolutely, and it's we talk a lot with, we use some programs to measure and things like that. And that's a conversation we have with them in terms of, what does development look like for their programs down the road? Because as a PR person, you're ranking it based on sheer number. But for us, a client based in New Jersey, for example, they're going to have a lot greater success with some of the local print media, maybe, or a News 12, for example, than with a client that's on more of a national scale.
Gotcha. Okay. I love that. Talk to us about social media. You mentioned it a couple times already. How has social media changed the game for public relations? And then also touch on this new term, influencers, and what does that actually mean?
Sure. Yeah, so I think, if you think about the root of PR, right? So the two core components to PR have always historically been, reaching your target audience and enhancing your credibility, right? That value of the third-party endorsement. Something that, no offense, Anthony, but that you might say to somebody would have a different value than if for example, the New York Times said it.
Yeah.
So it's always been kind of the root of that. Social media and influencers have just given us a different avenue to accomplish those goals, right?
Understood.
So we always say with our clients, when it comes to social media, yes, their presence is important, their content development is important, but what we like to measure the most is engagement, right? So how is your community interacting with you? Again, that's similar to kind of the PR umbrella.
Yeah.
How's your message getting out there? What kind of community are you building? We focus on that management of that community to get there. And same with influencers. It really made just complete sense when influencers came to the marketing table that PR people would kind of take on an influencer marketing campaign. If you think of the nature of media relations and building those relationships with media and what they look like, and influencers the same thing, right? So we're reaching out to them. We're identifying what the alignment is there with a brand. Why does it make sense for a brand to work with them?
Yeah. In
some cases, there isn't even compensation there. Influencer marketing is one thing, and that's typically where they're getting paid for their content. But influencer relations is more focused on here's what your audience is looking for. Here's the type of content you produce. Here's what my client's doing and why it would make sense for us to partner.
Okay.
So I think there's just a lot of synergy there, and that's why it's kind of fallen under the PR umbrella.
Yeah.
So some people might think, social media and influencers have become a challenge. Essentially, it's just given us a lot more opportunity to get clients' messages out there.
So I'm writing this down so I don't forget, because I have 2 follow-up questions. So the first one is third-party validation. You mentioned that, and I actually discussed that sometimes with guests prior to coming on, is that's part of the a benefit of coming on a podcast, anybody's podcast, right? Is that you're getting this third-party validation from another entity and their domain authority and the reputation they've built of being there, right? And we hope that Domain has built that to influence other people as well. But can you touch on that from your perspective, the third-party validation and what that means?
Yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. Credibility there associated with the outlet, or it could be the organization, right? A lot of times when it comes to PR, one thing we focus on is strategic partnerships. Okay. So, what does it make sense? For example, would it make sense for 3E, PR, and Domain to partner on something where we're talking about the impact of marketing and technology, or how is there synergy between how you handle a crisis, both on PR? So how does it make sense for organizations to partner up? And again, because of that third-party credibility. So if it was a client of mine, I'm not going to look for an organization that has less reach than I do. Yeah. You want to look for somebody who can kind of amp it up. So it's all about aligning yourself with either the media or an organization that can give you that validation and kind of further enhance your message.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree to that too. I think some of the most influential people I've found that I'm either now learning from or that I'm like reaching out to are people that I've heard through another party that I already trust, which is like this, whether it be the podcast world, whether it be the blogging world, it's like almost like the one leads you to the next, which leads you to the next, and you keep going, and you're like, how did I even get to this person almost, You can
think about it in the same as like if you're looking for a new product, right?
Yeah.
If your best friend comes to you and says, you have to use this, right? Yeah. Versus you read 100 reviews on Google, you're going to probably go with what your friend says because you trust them. Yeah. You know what they're saying.
So true.
It's thinking about you. It's kind of the same concept.
And then the second thing I wrote down so I didn't forget it is influencers, right? You touched on that. What about, I guess my question is more around curiosity about influencers in, say, like a more B2B space.
Sure.
And I'm sure they're out there. I haven't actually, I see like a lot of influencers in some B2C products, but I'm wondering your opinion on influencers in more of the B2B world.
Yeah, they absolutely exist. A little bit different of a model,
okay.
I think, in terms of it's more that influencer relations, right? So you're going to see, from a female perspective, a ton of influencers talking about the latest lipstick or shoes or whatever, and they're being compensated typically for it. In the B2B, it's still more focused on the influencer relations, right? So you're not going to want to recommend or talk about a product unless you fully believe it. I'm sure in the IT space you have a ton of partners that you trust and work with, and you're not going to want to talk about someone outside of that because you haven't experienced it yourself. I think that's where the B2B influencer relations still is. You have to have use of what you're talking about and trust within it. It's a little more about the relationship building than it is.
Yeah, that's super interesting you brought that up. So I'm just going to look at the camera a little bit more here. So Domain as an IT services firm is part of what's called a peer group. Okay. So it's kind of like an association, but not, where it's just peer groups of similar revenue size, employee counts from all across the country that get together. And there's about 400 of them. And then they break down into like smaller 10 to 12 organization groups. And then you get together every single quarter. But to your point there, one of the companies that was there said, I get prospected by these technology companies that do cybersecurity this and cybersecurity that, trying to constantly sell him to implement this for his clients. And his answer to them, which is exactly what you're talking about, was, unless I hear a recommendation from my peer group of companies during the quarter, I'm not going to implement the solution. I want to hear it from them first. Right. So exactly what you're saying.
In the online space, not word of mouth.
So powerful though, I think, in that. So I guess the final question on the topic is, where do you see PR in the next 3 to 5 years evolving, going to? Any of your thoughts on PR?
Sure. I think think PR, it's going to stay strong. It's always, PR from now 15 years prior is significantly different in its model. But it's always going to be impactful, and I think will actually become a little bit bigger portion of a marketing mix, especially as content development becomes and content marketing becomes a lot bigger. But for sure, we're going to see it become a lot more digital even than it is now.
Okay.
I think the concentration will turn a little away from kind of the print, even maybe broadcast, and then it'll be focused on blogs and podcasts, online presence, things like that. And again, I think social media is not going away. Facebook might, but another platform will arise.
100%.
So social media and influencers will be here to stay for now, and part of that mix. I think you'll see, like I said, PR turn a little bit more digital than it even is now, and content will become an even bigger part of it.
Okay. Very good. So those are all our PR questions for now. I'd like to flip it a little bit and get to know Megan a little bit more. So Megan is also a NJ Biz 40 Under 40 winner. So congratulations. We had our event last Wednesday, I believe. I had 2 weddings in between, so I'm like completely off the
Lots
topic.
of suits.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a great time. We were over at I Play America in Freehold, which was a good venue. But Megan, if you were to go back to yourself at People Magazine, based on what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
Sure. I have 2, and one very specific to PR, and one just could go to anybody starting out.
Awesome.
So PR-wise, I would say it's bigger than the next media hit. When you first start in PR, it's very competitive in terms of, I just got this in USA Today. Oh yeah, well I just got this in the New York Times. It's very focused on, what coverage did you get for your client that day? And of course, coverage is huge in PR, but it's a lot bigger. And as you kind of grow into more of a leadership role, you see that a little bit more. I think it's hard to kind of see the light of that when you're first out of college. So I think it's important to know there's going to be more, and you're going to get your hands into a lot more strategy development and what that looks like than you are coming out. And the second that could go to anybody just starting their career would be, don't underestimate the value of networking and building a center of influence. It took me some time to get comfortable with that. We had a conversation, Anthony and I, about kind of younger people getting more involved in networking. And I think it's, you have to find that comfort level to get out there and go, but go to events, ask people questions, find people on LinkedIn. You never know who your next client's going to be, or who can get you your next job, or who knows that next person. So just network.
It's very funny you mentioned that. So my director of marketing, Adele, who you got to meet earlier, real quick. So she was on her first panel at NJBIA's women's event that was Thursday and Friday this last week. And she was like, out of I think there was 3 or 4 people on the panel plus the moderator. She was like, there was 2 women up there that I really would like to get to know more and blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, I was like, invite them out to lunch. Like, go have lunch with them, right? And I said, like, going back 5 years ago, I was on a panel and I was super nervous for my first one. I was going to be the youngest one. Like, it was the first time doing it. And so the way I counteracted that is I asked each of the panelists to go out to lunch with me so I could get to know them prior and get on the same page with them. And they all said yes. And these were people like way above my pay grade, shouldn't even have been talking to them or getting time on their calendar. And I was able to. And that was like the one moment back in time that like changed the career path that I had. So I can't recommend what you said strongly enough to go and do it. And if your company won't invest in you, I see a lot of people get held up on this, especially younger, like I need my company to do it, it. Your company's not always going to do it. Like you may have to go do it yourself, but
and there's some that are more cost effective, right? Look around and see there's some, women in business, especially events that are free to attend. So just do some poking around and ask people what to go to. I think the other thing you touched on there is kind of the young quality, right? So the hesitation there, and I'm going to be the youngest one, how is that going to work for me? And I joined a networking group about a year and a half ago, and I'm the youngest one in the group. It's called C4BX. It's Connect for Business Exchange. It's a great group of people. We're small, and there's a little under 20 of us. But age has had no barrier to the power of this group. It's all about relationships and building them. And, like you said, have lunch with people. I've had lunch with everybody in the group, and I've learned about their business. They've learned about mine. And they might not be a client, right? But I've had plenty of referrals just from them learning okay, I can trust Megan. I know what her company does, and that's who I'm going to pass along to.
Yeah, you're so right. And like, you never know where that's going to go, right? You just putting yourself out there and doing that with them, like in 3 years, all of a sudden they may raise their hand and be like, I remember you, like, let's do this. Yep. So good stuff. All right, we'll keep it moving. Sure. What book or books have changed your thought process the most on either your career, personal development, or whatnot? And I also have somewhat changed this too, which it could be any type of media. So it could be podcast, books, blogs, whatever it may be.
Print to digital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a book.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's by Kim Scott.
Okay.
It's called I don't know if you need the dump button here, but
it's
called Be a Kickass Boss Without Losing Your Humanity.
Okay.
She was a former Google exec, and then she went over to Apple. She now has a company called Candor, Inc. But she really focuses on something that I felt was a weakness of mine becoming a leader, which is giving negative feedback in addition to positive feedback.
Yeah.
Especially, like, again, being young and being in a leadership role. That's a little challenging, right? Sometimes you're leading people that are older than you.
Correct.
Or close to you in age. People maybe you were friends with prior. So this book really focuses on the value of that constructive criticism in terms of your relationship with your employees and their personal development. So I think it was a very good lesson in kind of how to have those relationships with your employees.
Yeah, and those conversations. They're hard. Yeah. But they can result in, if the employee is open to it, it can result in some of the biggest growth in them as an individual. Yes. So that's awesome. What nonprofit or charity do you personally, or does 3E Public Relations support, and you'd like to give a little bit more recognition to?
Sure. So we're very particular in 3E when it comes to like our nonprofit work. First of all, we don't usually just donate, right? We show up, we do an event, we like to be involved, and we typically pick organizations that are somewhat close to our hearts. Okay. So 2 that we're working with now on an ongoing basis. One is the Metropolitan YMCA of the Oranges. Okay. I'm a board member now.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. They're a fantastic organization. They run multiple YMCAs in the area. And I think what is most interesting to me about them is you think about the YMCA and you tend to think of, swimming and like some physical fitness, right? But they have so many programs that are for the community and all obviously with nonprofit funds. So, they do everything from, they have a Live Strong program for cancer survivors to their childcare program is huge, and as a working mom, right? Like that's big time. So we support them, and like I said, I'm on the board, so I'm actively involved. We're also doing some work with cancer care. Okay. So, we came across them actually doing some work for a client. And I think when people think of cancer, they think of some of the big name organizations. What we found so interesting is that they're a little bit smaller. They have an office in New Jersey, based in Paramus. And they do so many things for a smaller scale cancer organization. Yeah. They have a ton of programs that are for anybody going through cancer treatment and their families, regardless of income level. Okay. So they have like a pet assistance program. They do meal delivery. They do bereavement programs. Yeah. So we just actually participated. They had a walk-wag run. So WAG is bring your dog. Yeah. They have the pet assistance programs. And it was a good 3-mile walk. And I've done a 3-mile walk in a while with my dog also and my 4-year-old. That's awesome. But they're just a great organization to be aware of.
Cool. Yeah, we'll make sure Tyler links to them in the show notes so we can give them some public relations.
Thank you.
Final question is, who is a thought leader or everyday practitioner that you think is doing excellent work that we also could get out there to the marketplace so they know more about them?
Yeah, so one I like to follow is Ed Zitron. I would say probably a lot of PR people know him. He's a 2-time author. He's on the East Coast. He has an agency, specifically tech-focused. Okay. But he has 2 books. He does a lot of speaking engagements, produces a lot of content. And I think what I like about him the most as a thought leader is going back to kind of the first question you asked me, he focuses really on how does PR fit in that overall umbrella. So he talks a lot now about the digital aspects of PR and where PR falls into kind of that overall marketing mix. Yeah,
awesome. So the full integration and helping you guys all learn on that. That's cool. All right, everybody. That was Megan, Executive Vice President of 3E Public Relations. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. This is great.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.